ownership and opportunity. Before that, I'm told we are now ready with our QR code for the deal rooms. Are we ready? The QR code, are you able to project it on screen so that we can quickly scan? There we go. If you scan that QR code, you'll be able to select which deal room you want to be part of, and that will be right after the break. We'll have two. There's one on sustainable agriculture. This breakout room 2 has circular economy, climate setting, and that list goes on. And there are other deal rooms there on entrepreneurship, renewable energy, and nature-based solutions. Now, back to our plenary session. Let me give you a few minutes to just wrap up scanning this QR code. Are we good? Remember, that is for the deal rooms. We're now back here for our plenary session, Raising Africa Investment, Ownership and Opportunity. Now, to speak on climate investment, we have the Green Finance Specialist from FSD Kenya, and that is Madam Sarah McKenna. Sarah, if you could just make your way to the podium, let's appreciate her as she joins us on stage to set the scene, after which we shall have a panel discussion. Sarah, karibu sana.
Good morning. Good morning. We've been given quite some information and data to kickstart our day and kickstart the conference. So I'm imagining we should have some energy and be very enthusiastic about what we're looking forward for the next 3 days. So like I have been introduced, I work with FSD Kenya, and we've been introduced in a way. The speaker who came before me talked about, he gave us a new name, FSD Africa Kenya. So FSD Africa and FSD Kenya are two different institutions, but we're very related and we work together, and they've been doing some excellent work on sustainable linked bonds, and I've been working with Nigeria, and I can confirm that there is excellent work that has been done within the West African market. And we've begun the work here, so I need to report that. So, Julian, in the next few months, we should have a green bond issued. I hope we will do that. And I'm hoping that the NSC CEO will hear this and remember that the pressure is on because of the work that we're doing with them. I am not seeing my presentation up, but I'll continue speaking to the few points and the few things that I needed to mention. The first thing is, all I will do is repeat everything that has been said by the first three speakers, because the data is out there, and we know what Africa needs and the challenges that we have. And the gap is something that we've been speaking about every COP. We talk about the funding gap for Africa in terms of we need more financing. But the thing that I can mention and talk about right now is, say, if I told the investors in the room right now to stand, they would all tell me they're looking for deals and they're looking for investable opportunities to invest in. And the challenge is, what do we then do about this gap between the demand and supply side of capital? And that's, thank you, that's one of the biggest challenges that we face today. And what we do at FSD Africa is to see, how do we make financial markets work? FSD, I've even adopted FSD Africa now. FSD Kenya, what we do, and it's both for Africa and Kenya, is to make financial markets work. And for us is to look at what exists in the market, what is being done by the PEs, VCs, our commercial banks, and how can we make this work for the people that are looking for the capital. And that's what we're doing. And, sorry, okay. So the next thing that I was to talk about has been alluded to by the three speakers, and it's the gap in financing for both Africa and for Kenya. We're only able to raise about 23% annually of what we need for green and climate financing. What it means is we have opportunity, but we do not have the funding. But again, I repeat the point I had said earlier, but the investors are still looking for where do they put their money. And we are still talking about the challenges of we do not have investable businesses. But that's why we're here today, and we've been having this discussion, and KCAC has existed for the number of years that they've existed to continue creating businesses that are investable. And I'll want to give to talk about something that we've been doing at FSD Kenya for a while. So we launch a report every 2 years, the FinAccess report. And this year, our report that was launched end of last year, we tried to look at climate investments. And the one thing I have to mention is, when you look at the statistics that you can see on the screen, the sad news is very few people are doing this deliberately. But the good news is, herein lies the solution to what we need to do. That when we looked at the statistics, that the overall investment in what we would call climate solutions was not anything to take home about. But the thing was that we realized where there was a need, then these investments existed. Where the solar solutions seemed to be more was where these were areas that were off-grid. It's not the people in Nairobi that we keep on encouraging and saying, can we try and get alternative to the main grid? So it means that if we are creating a solution, and I'll speak to that in a slide that will be coming, is we need to innovate for the market. You need to be looking at what are the challenges that the market is experiencing, and you develop a solution for it. I like to mention a point here as I also speak to my next point. When we look at the demand and supply side of innovation, one of the biggest challenges is that we go innovate and then go to the market to tell them about our excellent solutions. We do not go to the market first to look at what are the challenges that the market is facing. I want all of us to have M-Copper at the back of our minds. Then I'll come back to that conversation. Here is another set of statistics. And because I don't want to bore you with all the data and statistics and tell you all that we found from FinAccess, I'll ask you to check our website. And we have quite some statistics there. And the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics has a whole dashboard that you can play around with the data to see what's happening within the different counties on green investments and what are the opportunities that we can take advantage of. And here we were looking at, once you experience climate shocks, what happens? While I was looking at this presentation, one of the things that for sure I knew is most of us do nothing. And that's why we have the classic lady. I think there's a lady that goes on and on every year talking about serikali saidia in the Budalangi area. Because we're not really doing anything about what's happening in climate change. We just wish it away and hope, let's move because the floods are coming. But the question is, we have innovations that some have come out of KCAC, others within the ecosystem where we can tell the flood will be coming in this number of months. What are we doing? Because the same region will experience a drought a few months after. So there seems to be a bit of disconnect in what we do in terms of the challenges that we experience, that is climate effects, and our reaction. We are very reactionary in how we respond. So we, of course, were looking at the finance side of it on what people are doing. Very few people are going to their savings, credit, and claiming insurance. And that's the other side. These are issues that we know every year. How many of us have even gone ahead to insure against climate shocks? Very few people, and we think it is only for the people with large-scale farms, and it doesn't concern us. So when the shocks then happen, then we all are wondering what to do. Yet when you go to a number of our insurance companies, this is a solution that is there, but we don't take advantage of it. So what next for Africa? And these were my thoughts and things that I was thinking about, and we've been discussing. And this is where I said, let's pack a bit the M-Copper story that I'll come back to speak to on my second point, domestic capital, ACS. from the ACS declaration, the one agreement that was there is we must use our resources as Africa. The three speakers that spoke before me mentioned that as a point. I think if you've been in this space for long enough, one of the things that you know is this has been a defining year for us. We've understood that development financing will not continue as has been. We have to think about our local solutions. We have to also add into what is coming to us. So if we are going to a development partner to ask for financing, what is that catalyzing? It is no longer business as usual. It's going to be catalytic financing, that if we are going in with a fund that Murabula spoke about, it means that we are showing the ripple effect that this will have. So when we talk about domestic capital, ACS, there was a commitment for 50 billion annually. I can imagine if you remember the statistics that have been mentioned, you know, this seems like very ambitious because we are not even getting anywhere close to this. But the thing is, we have capital that we have sitting with us that we are able to take advantage of and use to get local solutions for ourselves. The next point is on what I spoke about earlier, on market-driven solutions. There's one big challenge that I see in a number of innovations that even come to us as market players, that we innovate first, and you believe that this is a solution for the market. But the market really is not looking for that specific solution. So you struggle for the next number of years. You're trying to explain to us how excellent this solution is. But the challenge is you did not first go to the market to understand where is the shoe paining, where is the shoe hurting, so that we come and get a solution for it. And that's why I asked us to pack the M-Copper story. For a very long time, we heard about M-Copper. But the moment they got into the business of giving access to phones, that was a defining moment for their business model, because that's a need. If today your phone is switched off, you will do everything, call your relatives, talk to everyone to make sure your phone is working again. And that's just an example. I know there's the politics behind it and everything behind that, but the thing that for me makes me think about it is this then is what the market was looking for. That's why when we're talking solar solutions, where should we be going? It's the areas that are off the grid, because they understand that, yes, we need lighting. But we are all concentrating, and we want to speak to the Nairobians and encourage them to ditch Kenya Power and start using solar solutions. And that's the struggle that we continue experiencing. But if we are able to go back to the market and look at what is the biggest pain of the Nairobi residents, and we talk about that and see, okay, I think transport is. And we're able to develop a solution around that, and it gives them a solution to what is actually a problem for them. Then we will have another Safaricom M-Pesa story coming in, because that's a solution that came to the market and we are to our market, and we no longer have to put money in envelopes to send to my grandmother in the village. So we need to come up with solutions that the market needs. So before you innovate, and now here I'm speaking to the innovators, go to the market. Otherwise, you will come to the investors, and the question we will keep asking is, what is your total addressable market? The three of us who tried to pilot your project are not enough for you to invest, for us to invest. And then the final point is, I know I was doing the most with the graphic here, lazy capital. I think this was spoken about. We are very risk averse. We only invest in things that we are sure we will not lose our money. And we don't need to think too much about it. But the question is, what are we doing as an ecosystem that is making the pension funds not attracted to us? Because instead of us having a conversation every year of pension funds have a lot of money in Africa, all these endowments, we have the SACCO deposits, and they're not investing in green businesses. It means because they are still looking for areas to put their money, we need to do something different. And here is to create businesses, like I mentioned, scalable businesses. it is no longer our businesses, and this, I think this was mentioned by the last speaker who said that green is no longer just a thing for us to do. We have to create a business case from it. The days where we used to speak about green as a good thing to do and every business will come with a CSR project to respond to climate change, those days are gone. So what we need to look at is, this business that I'm talking about, am I able to make money? Because the investor, after speaking about the good things and the social returns and what it's done to the environment, we will again ask you the question, what is the return on investment? When am I going to get my money back? And as I come to a close, the things, again, like I said, I'll be repeating a lot of things that we have been mentioned. Engaging the private sector is no longer an option. This is something we must do. The private sector is the one that does business. Government develops policy. So the whole conversation of us waiting that the government is the one that will continue supporting us in terms of innovation, that I feel we are moving backwards. So the private sector needs to innovate and apologize for the innovations rather than waiting for the government to be in the forefront. So we need to be looking at partnerships with financial institutions, innovative financial models that have been mentioned, green bonds. Why are we not seeing as the green bond market growing like we would have wanted to see? There's also accountability and transparency in terms of reporting. We need to be looking at these sustainability reports that are being launched. A few weeks ago, I think all the banks launched their reports. Look at them. Why don't we ask questions and want to understand really these statistics that you're talking about and the green loans, where are they? Because we seem not to be feeling that in the market. And finally, in terms of knowledge and being able to disseminate the information that we have, the market needs to understand that climate is business and green is business. And there is an opportunity for us to allow everyone to understand what green is at their level. It does, for us here, we may understand the technical terms, but the rest of the people are looking for solutions and they do not necessarily want to understand what a green bond is. Them want to know, how can I invest my money and get it back? And how can I invest my money? How can I also get a solution that makes sense for me? So I think I'll leave it at this point and say, I believe that in the next 3 days, we will be able to have a conversation that will allow us to introspect and think about how do we think about the local solutions and the solutions that will make sense for us as a market. Thank you.
Many thanks to Sarah McKenna from FSD Kenya. One more round of applause for her, please. She's reminded us of the perennial conversation we have with pension funds. And anytime you raise that question that has been raised, you'll be told about trustees and the fact that they have not yet recalibrated their risk appetite to whet their appetite for this kind of products. But we hope that will change in due time. We want to jump into a panel conversation, and I want to call on stage Nakami Walunywa from Village Capital, who will help us steer that session over the next 45 minutes. Let's appreciate her, she is.
All protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Now, this feels very surreal for me because the last time I was standing on this stage, I was actually part of the team at the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. And Joseph, Felix, and team, I remain grateful for the amazing work that you're doing in this ecosystem and for the champions that you're building. Thank you very much. Now, a lot has been said that I don't want to get into because it's already been spoken about by the last 3 speakers that were here, 4 speakers actually that were here. But it's not a secret that Africa is brimming with climate innovation, from renewable energy to sustainable food systems to circular solutions, yet we continue to rely heavily on external aid to fund our problems as Africa. Our session today is going to answer the question, how do we mobilize our own capital, strengthen our own markets, and finance our own transitions? Together, we're going to unpack what it really takes to unlock local capital, from stock exchanges to startups, from institutional investors to community enterprise, and together then take the collective ownership of our continent's green growth journey. Now, I am joined on stage today by a brilliant and diverse group of leaders who are shaping that vision from a very unique lens, from policy to capital markets, to grassroots enterprise support and investment matching. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome on stage our first speaker from the Nairobi Securities Exchange Advisory Manager, Gift Corey. Give him a round of applause as he comes on stage. Our next speaker joining us today is Manager Corporate Affairs at the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, Ernest Chitechi. Round of applause for him. The next speaker joining us today is CEO, Raising Capital, Francis Nasiomba. Round of applause for Francis as he joins us on stage. Our next speaker for the day is none other than Managing Director, Somo Africa, Catherine Masolia. And last but not least, a man that I just met today and had a very exciting conversation, 2-minute conversation with, from Nigeria, Executive Secretary, Financial Center for Sustainability for the UNDP, and Vice President, Government Affairs at FMDQ Nigeria, Mr. Let me just get his name again, Emmanuel Etadehi. Round of applause for him as he joins us on stage. All right, I just want to check that your microphones are working. Good. All right, let's take 1 minute each to just introduce ourselves and what we do. 1 minute each, starting with Catherine.
Hey, my name is Catherine Masoli. I'm the Managing Director at Somo Africa. At Somo Africa, we work to empower micro and small enterprises, and we especially focus in marginalized communities. In Kenya, we are in the western part of Kenya, coastal Kenya, Nairobi Central. We are also in some refugee camps, the northern part of Kenya, and then we are very actively working also in Arusha and Uganda.
Thank you, Catherine. Francis?
Good morning, everyone. Hello, good morning. Yeah, I'm African, so I always want to hear feedback from my team. My name is Francis Nasiomba, and I'm the CEO of Raising Capital. At Raising Capital, we help African businesses to access capital through advisory and tech. On the advisory side, we basically do corporate finance advisory, what you all call investment banking. And we've also created a capital raising platform, a digital capital raising platform, capitalconnect.africa, which is intention to actually help African businesses access capital in a far much faster and cost-efficient way. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Ernest?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, my name is Ernest Chitechi from Kenya Climate Innovation Center. We are the conveners for this forum today, but we are also the leading incubator for climate technology in Africa. We support enterprises in 5 key sectors, so that's agriculture, renewable energy, water, waste management, and commercial forestry. So it's a pleasure to be with you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gift Corey. I'm the advisory manager for SME growth at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The Nairobi Securities Exchange is the best performing market in Africa in dollar terms for the past 2 years running. And we provide investment solutions for people, for companies, individuals looking for investments, products such as equities, bonds, green bonds, which is part of the conversation we are going to be having here today. And we facilitate this by working with our market intermediaries, DFIs, development partners, to ensure that we bring the best products to market. Looking forward to the conversation here today.
Thank you, Gift.
Good morning once again. My name is Emmanuel Etadehi. Executive Secretary of the Financial Center for Sustainability, Lagos, which is a UNDP organization that's in 45 countries across 5 continents in the world. And that's my job for humanity, as I mentioned earlier. My day job for bread and butter is with FMDQ as the head of government affairs, and also oversight responsibility for external affairs, and also the project manager for the Nigeria Green Bond Market Development Program, which we do in partnership with FSD Africa, and we've been running for the past 7-8 years, supporting the issuances of green bonds in Nigeria, supporting the regulators to craft their rule book, and supporting issuers, and other stakeholders within the green economy ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Now, while you still have the microphone, you have just left the stage and spoken about green bonds and how well Nigeria is doing. Can you speak to us about sort of the lessons that we can draw from Nigeria's experience in leveraging pension funds, sovereign wealth, and corporate capital to finance sustainable infrastructure and green investment?
Thank you very much. I'll say that, as I mentioned, and I will keep on repeating it, we've made progress because of our partnership with Kenya in this space. The Nigerian Green Bond Market Development Program was deliberately set up to help drive the growth of the green ecosystem in Nigeria since 2017, 2018, and I've been privileged to be part of that project from scratch. We started with awareness creation. So you're wondering how we've made success, how we've been able to travel this far. We recognized that there was a need to create awareness, speak to people about the whole concept of climate change, the impact, and then the challenges faced and the solutions we think could help us come out of the woods. And we trained people in private sector, public sector. We trained issuers, intermediaries. We trained the lawyers, the accountants. We trained the guys who do the rating. We even got local verifiers in Nigeria accepted by Climate Bonds Initiative in the UK. We organize conferences like this. We organize seminars, and that was one of our strategy to create awareness. The second part was then to now tell potential issuers that if you indicate your interest to issue, we will help you develop the framework, and at no cost. Whatever cost we were to incur was being provided by the British government through FSD Africa. So they supported the program. Every year we get a grant to help us do this technical work of helping people to accept the concept of climate change, consider switching from brown finance to green finance, and then teaching them how to issue. Building the framework for them, walking them through the process, and holding them, ensuring that they follow the protocols, they understand the taxonomy, and also that they report annually on the use of proceeds. We've been doing that job. In a year, we could do up to 11 sessions, just teaching different stakeholder groups, whether you're in government or private sector. And we did it with fervor, with zeal. Even when we were laughed to scorn, we did it. Even when they didn't believe us, we did it. We didn't care. Because we knew that what we were saying will come to pass. We knew that it was true. We knew it was real. We knew that it had profit. It's not just about doing good. And then for the pension funds, we're lucky to have friends within those spaces. We had conversations bilateral, and then we had official meetings. And when they were writing their guidelines, they gave us the draft to contribute. And we were able to inscribe the fact that there should be investments in ESG-related products in those guidelines. There's been a revised guideline published a few months ago now that has it categorically inserted that pension funds can invest in ESG-related products. Now, in Nigeria also, we benefited from two great policies. One is the Nigeria Sustainable Banking Principles, which the central bank, together with the banks in Nigeria, created, and they all signed onto it. And Access Bank took advantage of that principle, and they worked with us. We trained them. They issued the first certified corporate green bond in Africa. We also worked with the Securities and Exchange Commission. They also issued a policy document called the Nigeria Sustainable Finance Principles. And in that document, listed companies are encouraged to report on their compliance with climate change or ESG related themes. So also with gender related issues. So in Nigeria there is this can I call it a policy or an agreement that you must include gender in your board. You must include gender in your considerations for investments. And so today in Nigeria, you have at least 30% of the banks, headed by women. And these are not small banks. These are some of the biggest banks in the country. Zenith Bank, Fidelity Bank, GT Bank, that's a Guarantee Trust Bank. These are some of the largest retail banks in Nigeria. So that gender piece was always there. We also got it, we reviewed the SEC rules and ensured that gender components was part of it. We also helped the SEC to expand their rules to ensure that it doesn't just cover green bond, but it covers green, social, sustainable, and sustainability-linked instruments. So some of this work we did behind the scene helped us to have an atmosphere that encouraged the growth of the issuances of green bonds. But we're going beyond that. We're already getting state governments to pay attention to the green space. So there's a state government currently that is working to issue a green bond. We also taught people on how to issue blue bonds. So those are part of the things we've done to encourage the growth of the green bond market in Nigeria.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I want to go back to what you just said, because what I heard from you is create the awareness, build the capacity, be part of the process, and then have systems that actually allow you to thrive in that sense. But some of us here would argue that we are doing the same thing in Kenya. You have worked in the Nigerian market, you've also worked in the Kenyan market for the past 7 years. What do you think is setting us back as a country?
I will say that I think you're not doing too badly. You're spending part of your energy supporting other parts of Africa. But I think you should look inwards also. You've supported Nigeria. I know you're doing some work in other African countries where you're helping to build their capital markets. You should also look inwards. I know your first green bond was to support students' accommodation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You should look at some of the other areas that people are mentioning where do you have challenges. I heard something around flooding and then drought. Those are some of the areas you could look at. We also have flooding challenges in Nigeria too. You could look at those areas and then you can then focus on them. We had to pick and choose our area. So if you look at the green bonds issued in Nigeria, the most common themes will be on renewable energy, because there's a distinct energy gap in Nigeria. There's energy poverty. About 55% of the population do not have access to stable electricity. And if they do have, it's not from the grid. You understand? So we have to focus on our pain points. So what is your pain point? If you focus on the pain point and ensure that there's some profitability in doing that, people will follow what you're saying. So if you have flooding and drought as a problem, address it. If you have access to water as a problem, that's another problem we have in Nigeria. Access to clean water. Water, sanitation, and hygiene are some of the themes that we also pursued. And then your policy framework must align, because in this part of the world, government is very big in terms of influence on the general economy. Yeah. The government leads the way. So if you look at Nigeria, their government actually led the way. Aisha Mohammed was an environment minister in Nigeria, and she led the way. She encouraged the issuance of the first green bond. When she moved higher to the World Bank, she continued to support Nigeria. And that has been very, very useful for us, having the kind of support from the government space and from the DFI space. Now, the World Bank has been supportive too. The IFC, the local, also some local institutions, like as I mentioned, Access Bank, some other banks, Sterling Bank, Stanbic Bank, they've also been supportive. You have to get that ecosystem, the stakeholder ecosystem together, where you have government, private sector, and you have individuals with a commitment to driving this change. That is what I think you should be able to apply to Kenya to make it progress more in this space.
Thank you for that, Emmanuel. All those stakeholders that you listed here, including the government, are here. So we do hope that they have taken note of that. Now, to GIFT on mobilizing institutional and retail investors through capital markets innovation. How is the NSE expanding green and sustainability-linked instruments such as green bonds and ESG indices to attract both institutional and retail investors?
First, let me say that the NSE has been on a very deliberate agenda to promote climate-focused financing. I think in 2019, we partnered with the Kenya Bankers Association to come up with the inaugural Kenya Green Bond Framework. And the idea was that then having that green bond framework would really accelerate the issuance of green bonds or other sustainability-linked products in the market. In 2021, we also launched our ESG disclosures guidance manual, and the idea was to also promote the reporting by our own listed companies and really to accelerate the awareness on sustainability and how that weaves into the day-to-day running of companies. And the idea, I think, for us as an exchange, with the proliferation of ESG and the ever-increasing need for us to really look at financing from a climate lens, then is to provide the infrastructure and the support system across the capital markets in order to promote issuance of products, but also to support capital market stakeholders to really come together to promote financial flows to this sector. So there are very many interventions that we have embarked on from a policy point of view, and I think most recently we launched our Sustainability Finance Center of Excellence together with the support of FSD Kenya. And this Center of Excellence is really geared towards supporting the issuance of climate-focused, sustainability-linked products within our markets. I think, suffice to say, we've only seen one green issuance, and I think when we talk about climate-focused financing, we really focus on the green bonds, and that's really where most people have put in a lot of their effort. But the program is really supposed to look at three key actors in the market. So on one hand, we have the issuers, we have investors, and then we have the actors, market actors, who are really supposed to come in and support these issuances. So if I, for example, take the Acorn Green Bond, which was the first green bond issuance in Kenya. First of all, we need to first have issuers in the market. And what that speaks to is then, do we have a deep pool of bankable projects that can actually be taken to market? And to Mr. Emmanuel's point here is that we need to look at what our pain points are and create viable products out of them. A lot of there's a theme around climate financing being grant focused, but at the end of the day, in as much as we want to combine nature financing, climate, talk about climate resilience and all of that, at the end of the day, investors are still looking for a return. So we need to still structure bankability into our products so that they can compete against other asset classes. So from an issuer perspective, I think for us, through the program, is to first create awareness among potential issuers. If you look at Africa, we are 92% green. That means that there's a lot of opportunity for us to actually come up with viable, bankable projects that can be brought to the market at scale. We've been working very closely with the e-mobility industry, for example, in Kenya, and saying how do we promote the industry, which is still very nascent, to actually come to market, leverage on both institutional and retail capital to promote the growth of the industry as a whole. For example, I know there are some of the companies that are looking at potentially issuing green bonds in our market to finance, for example, the batteries that go into the e-mobility industry. And that's a very key thing for us. So one of the main objectives of the program is to really capacitate the issuers, for them to understand the issuance process, to understand how the capital markets work, that sometimes it can be deemed a very complex journey, and they need to understand all the risks that are involved, and what support can be provided through the capital markets. So one of the key interventions we are really looking to do for the issuers is to provide technical assistance. And technical assistance comes in the form of coming up with green bond frameworks, for example, because that's the first point of contact. So do the companies have a viable green bond framework on which they can then go out to issue products? There are other costs that are also involved. For example, you need to pay your transaction advisors, you need to get your green certification, you need to get, for example, if you're going to incorporate guarantees, all of these come at a cost. And I think the DFI community and the government as well needs to come and step in and say, how do we then rationalize these costs and make it very simple and seamless for potential issuers to come to market. For the investors, as we build a bankable pipeline of projects, we then want you to come to the market and leverage some of the capital market instruments, such as funds. So why can't we, for example, explore the issuance of sustainability-linked funds on the exchange that can come in then to offtake these projects as and when they come to market? We are also trying to create awareness among some of our DFI partners, some of our fund managers, to also look at these asset classes at the exchange level then that can provide, really accelerate the flow of capital towards this sector. We speak about lazy pension assets, and it's true. Our pension assets currently sit at 2.23 trillion. We have bank deposits sitting at about 5 trillion Kenya shillings, and all of these can, if we could even channel 5% or 1% of these funds to sustainable finance, sustainability-linked products, then that would really accelerate the flow of capital.
Thank you, Gift. I want to sort of like throw a spanner in the works to two panelists here and hone in on one thing you have repeated 3 times while you spoke, that there aren't enough bankable projects for investment. And I know Catherine at SOMO and Ernest at KCIC, you work at the heart of sort of de-risking these investments. Do you agree with what he just said, and what are you doing to help de-risk this?
Okay, thank you, Nakami. So at KCIC, our role actually in terms of providing pipeline begins from the point of identification, because we work at the grassroots level where we are looking even at nano enterprises, small and medium, and now try and scale them to become more bankable. And over like the past 12 years that KCIC has existed, we've worked with close to 3,500 enterprises. One of the biggest challenges that we've actually seen is that the conventional financiers do not have a mechanism that then can evaluate the risk within the climate enterprises. So you'll find, if I go, for example, to a commercial bank, and I'm telling them I want to do, for example, a hostel, they know how to evaluate the risk for construction. But if I go to them and tell them I want to set up a nature-based solution facility, then they will be wondering, what are you talking about? And it may take a bit of time for them maybe to understand. So I think one of the things that as KCS we are doing is now to work with these financial institutions, whether they are SACCOs, microfinance, whether they are banks, to try and now also build their capacity in terms of what are the risks that are there within the climate enterprises. Then also looking in terms of research and innovation. You'll find that as an organization, we work with a number of SMEs, but if you look across Kenya, and as he has mentioned, there's now ESG reporting that is required for mainly most of the corporate organizations. But they also lack the need in terms of research, innovation, and we are trying to develop now a mechanism where the SMEs that we work with could actually be the engine for the innovation for some of these corporates. So if we can then bridge that gap where you see there's a more collaboration between the corporates, the SME, financial institution, and that then is backed up by policy, where now we call upon government to look at what are some of the incentives, whether they are physical, whether they are monetary, that then will spur collaboration and investment in some of these ventures. It's only that way that then we'll start having more bankable pipeline that most of these institutions are then talking about. Also now moving from just the normal low-value nodes or value chains, because maybe what they've been seeing is maybe I want to do, for example, a posho mill. We just do maize meal or cassava flour and all that. But then can we move them to now more higher value products and other innovations? So for example, now there's e-mobility, he has talked about it. Can we then start talking about assembly in Kenya, for example? We are talking about value addition. For a long time, we've always exported raw materials. So can we start now again encouraging some of these enterprises to move a notch higher and do value addition? So it's only in that way that then they can now start proving that they're actually bankable and then move them to the next level.
Thank you, Ernest. Catherine?
Every type of business requires its own type of capital depending on the stage that it's at. And what we have seen in working within the communities we've worked in, because we focus in the micro and small space, is that you need to grow that business. So definition of bankable, from your definition, yes, you might say they're not there. But SOMO has supported so far over 10,000 businesses by training them. And then we have financed over 1,000 businesses. And these businesses have received $2 million in capital. And we have seen that you start them on a small amount, if it's a micro enterprise, of maybe 50,000 Kenya shillings. It gets to a point where now they're asking for 2 million Kenya shillings. And the next stage then will be for them to access commercial capital. So in our experience, that shows us that many of the businesses will need different forms of financing. So you start them on a grant, small grant, then maybe you move them to concessional debt, then you find them transitioning to commercial capital. And we really believe that if we're going to actually support businesses, then this is the way to go. When SOMO began, we thought that it would be sufficient to give these businesses training on business development training. Then we soon realized that's not sufficient. Next, maybe you need to give them access to markets. And we started thinking of what platforms can we give them to get access to markets. And we started partnering with different organizations, and even KCAC is one of them, where you have markets where you have these entrepreneurs selling. Then next, we realized then they need access to finance. And the question then was, what kind of financing do they need? What blended models might we need to come up with to help their businesses? And so we helped them by helping them set up their books, because if a bank is going to look at a business, they'll start by asking them, where are your books? And maybe they don't know how to do it. So we gave them digital tools that allow them to keep their books of account in both English and Swahili. And now in the refugee camps, we have these digital tools in Somali language. And so then with that, they're able to start thinking of how would they present books to a financer who wants to look at, who's more interested in, who's seeing you as a risky investment. And then when we move from there, we realize then they would need a platform where you can know this is a kind of business, this is how it's performing. And so we have an invest platform where you can look at a business and see this is its performance and express interest in it. And I think by different actors working in different ways and collaborating, it will help us then move these micro and small enterprises to be bankable in the sense that we call bankable. And I really want to give an example of one sector we are looking at right now in e-mobility, where we thought we have border drivers, and this we might see them just as a border driver, but this is an entrepreneur eventually, or someone who's doing electric vehicle with an Uber with whichever of drive electric. So if they're using these electric vehicles, they'll need a form of financing. So what do we want to think about? How do we support such a business? And we realized you can blend maybe grant, give them concessional debt, help them access bank commercial capital. You blend that and see what will happen. Will we be able to have more borders moving into e-mobility? And the first test of the cohort we've done that is starting to show that there is potential in thinking like that. And I think we need to now start to think more in how we can combine different ways of financing by different actors working together in this way. And we come up with our own way of supporting micro and small enterprises, because the reality of Africa is our markets are different. And so we have to think in a different way when it comes to financing models.
Yeah. Francis, building up on what Catherine just talked about the realities of the African market, at Village Capital, we often use the term purpose-suited capital, which simply just means matching the right capital to the needs of the entrepreneur. Can you speak about how Raising Capital is thinking about designing, syndicating instruments that would then better match the realities of African entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in this climate space?
Thank you. And I think the posts that have been given are apt pretty much across. And I like that you said actually that our markets are different. So for me, how I'd explain it is maybe just a bit of facts. When it comes to fundraising, everyone talks about the unicorns and trying to raise all this amount of money to create unicorns. On average, there are maybe 1,200 unicorns in the world. So the first thing I keep saying is, can we stop chasing unicorns? Because they're not sustainable. We cannot all create unicorns. The right issuers, because if you look at the non-climate side, there is a funding gap of around $400 billion across Africa. On the climate side, we're talking of around $300 billion. Now, that's a huge, significant funding gap, yet the finances that are supposed to come in are already starting to complain that there is no, let me call it, good deal flow. The businesses are not investor ready, or they're not qualified for these transactions. So for me, it comes down to, for a business to actually be able to access capital, that business must be run effectively. And my saying, or our saying, is very simple. An investor-ready business is a very well-run business, whether it's an MSME, whether it's an SME, or whether it's a unicorn that it's raising. We need to accept that Africa, the way our businesses are run, are different. But at the same time, we need to change it so that we stop having these businesses which are run and they sort of become non-existent when the individual either gets sick or is no longer their cycle of life. And I think the best way is, one, to consider what SOMO is doing. For us, what we are doing, for example, is we've noticed that 90% of businesses we engage in are SMEs or MSMEs. We've also created a platform that actually helps them match to investors, give them all this advisory, but in a far more affordable way that they can access it. So I just want us to accept that we are dealing with a climate issue, but at the same time, just like the same challenges we've been getting with the other businesses, we need to resolve them. KCS is doing a very good job in trying to make sure these businesses are prepared, they're ready, the ideas come to life, and then prepare them for the next round of funding. But if we do not do that, then the government may have the right policies, the listed market, the NSE may be ready to offtake them. The investors will continue being shy because they do not see the opportunities. And the owners, the entrepreneurs, the businesses will keep complaining that there is no funding, yet it's just now that the funding is there. It's not matching because the businesses themselves are not ready. Yep.
All right. Thank you for that. Catherine, I just have one follow-up question for you. You have the platform SOMO Invest. How do you think retail investors can participate as micro-investors through platforms like that? Because I think that's a really important conversation for us to have as we wrap up.
Yeah, I think SOMO Invest is an excellent platform. If you're able to get onto the SOMO website, somoafrica.org, there is a place where it's written invest. So what that means is that anyone in this room can go there and look at the different types of businesses that have been supported by SOMO. And you can select a business there and express interest in investing in it. So even myself, there are some businesses that we work with that I'm interested in, maybe because they're in items that I like. So anyone can go there, whether you have, I don't know how much, 10,000 shillings to invest or millions of shillings, it's a place to start. And I think we should all try such platforms. And I'm seeing some of our entrepreneurs here. And so I'm hoping that they can get investment from there.
All right, in the interest of time and because we started late, one parting shot from each panelist on how we mobilize African capital. One sentence, 1 minute. We can start with Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. So I'll go back to what I said during my opening remarks. We should copy and innovate. We're no longer in college or in school. It's not a crime to copy. The US, even though people say Donald Trump is not big on climate change, the US is making great progress in that area with their green banks. The green banks fund renewable energy projects. They get into agreements with the original equipment manufacturers so that people in that space can have access to equipment to expand their business. They give sub-market rates to money. They give money at sub-market rates to investors, to those who are implementing renewable energy projects. They also source funding from what they call rate payers. So, for example, in Nigeria, electricity has been put in bands, band A, band B, band C. Those in band A have more access to electricity and they pay more. Part of that money, part of the charge could be made available to green banks, to fund green banks. We have talked about lazy capital. The pension funds can invest part of their money in green banks. Where the central bank can create incentives to enhance the development of green banks. It's only when you have these quasi-public-private sector type vehicle that you can expand access to funding for climate-resilient SMEs. We cannot wait for the FDBs. They're doing a great job, but they cannot do enough. You mentioned 50 billion, but you see we're not anywhere near there. So we can wait. Not everybody can have access to those type of funding, but if you make the vehicles available, you multiply them, they are in various communities and states like in the US, then many more SMEs can have access to funding at an affordable rate and expand their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what we heard from you is copy and then contextualize. Gift?
I think for me, it's partnerships. I think climate change is a global problem. Climate financing equally is a global problem. So we can't all sit in our corners and try to solve for a universal challenge. We need to collaborate, come together. All the different actors that are required to have a seat on the table should be willing to come and have that conversation. So it's the capital markets, it's the accelerators, the incubators, the financiers, the DFI community, the guarantee providers, all the stakeholders that are required to bring issuance and awareness to climate financing need to speak to each other and come to the market to find viable solutions to drive forward the conversation.
Thank you, Gift. Ernest, one sentence, please.
I think for me, it will be about building capacity for Africa climate enterprises, build their investment readiness, then we document some success stories, case studies, then create awareness in terms of what are the types of financing available, what instruments are there, and with that, then we should move the African enterprises to market.
Thank you so much. Francis?
Thank you. For me, I'd say is readiness, that the businesses, the entrepreneurs have to be ready to access this capital and also utilize the platform SOMO, our Capital Connect Africa, so that you can be able to efficiently prepare and be ready for the capital that will be coming in. Thank you.
For me, it would be, if you haven't invested as an individual, invest so that you can learn how to do it. And then for the rest of the actors, as you just mentioned, we all need to think collaboratively and think localized so that we can actually come up with solutions that make sense for our market.
Thank you so much to our panelists. I think when we started, Joseph did say we talk less and build more. What I got from this conversation is all 5 of you, together with the DFI, AFDB, should sit together in one room. Let's stop talking about collaborating and actually get it done. Now, help me in thanking our panelists today for joining us. as they leave the stage. And we do believe that the future of Africa's green transition actually lies in our hands. So let's start to build, less talk, more building. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much to the panel for that insightful conversation. Let's have a quick photo opportunity there before we transition to the next session. Thank you very much. Appreciate it for that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that conversation, which was our second leg in the plenary. Remember, we started with a presentation from FSD Kenya. I want to guide us on how we progress from here. So we want to have a very quick health break. Tea is served right behind here. So you will exit via this door and grab a cup of tea and coffee. Let's do that for about 20 minutes. We shall all converge, all of us, back here before we break out into our respective deal rooms. So please, breakout rooms rather. Let's make our way for tea. Meanwhile, there shall be a press conference in room 4. Room number 4, so all my friends and colleagues from the fourth estate, let's go to room 4 and have our presser. Meanwhile, the rest, let's have a refresher here and make our way back in 20 minutes. Thank you very much. Mic check 1, 2. Let's settle down, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take our seats. We'd like to continue with our program for the late morning into lunchtime. Shall we settle down? If you're still outside, kindly make your way into the ballroom. We want to continue with our program. Emilian, climate expert, and who has a presentation on circular economy opportunities. Meanwhile, the tech team at the back, let's just have a video as we await the CS to get her debrief and make her way to join us here. In the interim, if you're still outside, please come in and settle down. We'd like to continue with the program.
Your pencil, do you use it until it disappears? There's a small part that remains. So that small part that you can no longer sharpen, you can no longer hold to write with, as long as it's our pencil, you don't throw it. What you do, you plant it. Or if you're to throw it where there is soil. When it rains, it will germinate and grow into a tree. I used to be a garbage collector.
Those are the door, please make your way in. Let's settle down.
Now, one of the things that used to make me feel like cry is the amount of paper we used to find at the dump site. We thought of, okay, if you take the paper and store it somewhere else, then what next? You can't store it in a warehouse forever. You have to put it into use somehow. Now, fortunately, pencils are made from wood. Paper comes from wood. So the challenge became, can we convert paper back to wood to make pencils? We have hardened our graphite. Ordinarily, HB is good for writing, bad for drawing because it's dark. By hardening our graphite, your arm, the pressure of your hand, converts that pencil from a B pencil, meaning the artist's pencils, to a HB. So one single pencil can be used for drawing, and the same pencil can be used for writing. When you use wooden pencils, when you press, the graphite ordinarily goes back. That will never happen with green pencils. The future of pencil manufacturing, it's green pencils. We registered green pencils June 20th, 2012. So we've been in existence since then. When we started, we thought schools will be our greatest clientele, but it ended up being corporates. For the simple reason, you can brand them so they can be used for both advertising or marketing, and also as a CSR tool. I've got a team of people who are helping me. Before COVID, there's a time we had 44 workers. So now from 44 workers, now we have 6, but we are growing. I'm sure this thing with the plantable pencils, when it goes through, we'll have over 100 workers. Do you know that every time we recycle 1 ton of newspaper, we are saving 17 trees, 7,000 gallons of water, 380 barrels of oil, 4,100 kilowatt hours of energy, which can run an average home for more than 6 months. When I look at that, I cannot stop. And that's just 1 ton of paper that we've recycled. Someone sent me a link of something that was called a SWIFT program that was being hosted by KCSE. When I read through it, I was like, oh, this talks to me. So we applied. Now, from the time I joined KCSE, they're actually helping us by getting us experts, trying to open doors for us. We are waiting to get our S mark from KEBS. So KCSE has told us that once we have the S mark, they'll help us get into the retail market. That's the supermarkets, tier 1, tier 2, up to the kiosk levels. The other thing also that's going to help a lot is KCSE being involved in this plantable pencil. Once they grow, it will not be upon me to tell the world. KCSE will have told the world that this is happening. So our future, what we are hoping for, I'm looking at a situation whereby the pencils, the plantable pencils, are not just used in Kenya, but in Africa, preparing the African child so that when they become adults in 2050, they'll not only be able to feed themselves, but feed the entire world. you want to buy our products, right now they're available at Provision General Store and Shamba Cafe and Savanis Book Center. Let's not look as if we've inherited our environment from our forefathers, from our parents, but rather we've borrowed it from our children. Therefore, we need to live it in a better way than we found it. So each and every one of us has to do something to improve it.
Ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest has joined us. That is the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Honorable Daktari. Tech team, let's have the video out, please. CS Karibu Sana, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You may take your seats. Please settle down. Once again, we are delighted to welcome Honorable Dr. Deborah Mlongo Barasa, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. Tech team, please. Once again, Waziri Karibu. We're delighted that you could join us this morning to help us and give us the keynote in our session this morning. Friends, because our chief guest is here, it's my distinct honor to welcome Joseph Murabula back on stage to welcome our keynote speaker to make her address. Karibu. Let's appreciate Bwana Murabula.
Our chief guest, our Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Forestry and Climate Change, Dr. Deborah Mlongo. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning once more. It's afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah. In this session, my job is very, very easy, and basically just to welcome the CS to be able to make her remarks as it is. But before I do that, Honorable CS, allow me to make just a few 30-second remarks in terms of what the work that KCIC does with the ministry. I need to mention that the Ministry of Environment is our parent ministry, so to speak. While we are a private organization, we come from a public background, and that public background was actually midwifed by the Ministry of Environment with the support of the World Bank, 2012 then. And since then, we've always worked together in terms of policy, in terms of logistics, and in terms of convenings to ensure that the climate message is out there for everybody as it is. So we are very grateful for the support that the ministry continues to give us, and I hope that we'll continue to work together, especially to be the Kenya's voice across the entire continent as it is. As Kenya Climate Innovation Center, we were the first in the network of climate innovation centers across the world, and we have been the mentor to climate innovation centers across Africa. The one in Nigeria was set up directly by ourselves, and we continued to work with the one in Ghana and the ones in South Africa to ensure that then climate technologies and climate innovations can find support seamlessly across the entire continent. In June this year, we did a Pan-African strategy, and now we are hoping to be a Pan-African catalyst for climate entrepreneurship, supporting climate enterprise across the entire continent. And for us to be able to do that, as we discussed in the last session, we need finance, that is money, we need knowledge and skills, and we need policy. And so our ask of the ministry, as you continue to support us, is to support alignment of policies across the entire continent. Working with your other African colleagues, align policy to ensure that everything can be able to be done across the continent as one single homogeneous market, because climate change does not know borders as it is. So thank you very much. So now it's my pleasure to welcome on stage our Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, the Honorable Dr. Deborah Mulongo.
Thank you so much for having me here. My sincere apologies for coming late. We had quite a number of meetings in the morning that were overlapping, but I wouldn't miss it for the world. This is quite an innovation that we need in Africa. And so Mr. Joseph Murabula, CEO, Kenya Climate Innovation Center, and the convener of this workshop, Dr. Alex Mubiru, Country Manager, Africa Development Bank, John Masharia, Country Manager, Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, Bodo Iming, Country Director, GIZ, Kimiayo Fan, Country Director, World Bank, Her Excellency Ambassador Henrietta Geiga, EU Ambassador to Kenya, Your Excellency Ambassador Stefan Schoenemann, Ambassador for Denmark, and Ambassador Ali Mohammed, Kenya Special Envoy, distinguished guests, partners, leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my honor as the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry to join you today in this very important conference that acts as a continental platform designed to mobilize capital, build partnership, and scale climate-smart enterprises across Africa. On behalf of the Government of Kenya and the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, and on my behalf, I welcome you all to Nairobi, Africa's vibrant green capital for the second African Climate Investment Summit. Let me acknowledge the Kenya Climate Change Innovation Center for their efforts in organizing this event. You have convened all of us here to discuss a very pertinent issue: access to climate finance. This is a demonstration of great leadership, which I hope is motivated by the need for Africa to leverage on the global massive shift in investment, innovation, and infrastructure as we seek to turn vulnerability to investment opportunities. Africa is a continent endowed with unparalleled natural capital. We hold the world's highest solar and wind energy potential. Our vast forest and carbon sinks, like the Carbon Basin, serve as the lungs of the planet. Our mineral resources are the very building blocks of the global green transition. And most importantly, we are home to the youngest, most dynamic, and most innovative workforce in the world. To convert this reality into opportunities, we need predictable and adequate financing. However, the reality is that in Africa, climate finance has become both the key to and a barrier against investment and climate action. Finance is insufficient, inequitably distributed, and often debt-creating. Access is slow and complex, and domestic mobilization is weak. As a result, Africa's climate ambition remains largely unfunded, deepening its vulnerability and climate shocks. Despite this reality, here in Kenya, under the visionary leadership of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, we have made a decisive choice. We are actively positioning ourselves as a global hub of climate action, innovation, and investment. We have a golden thread running through our entire national economic blueprint, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. We understand, as Professor Wangari Maathai taught us, that the environment and the economy are two sides of the same coin. A healthy environment is the bedrock of a prosperous economy. Our ambition is codified in Kenya's second nationally determined contribution for 2031-2035. The full implementation of our NDC requires an estimated $62 billion. The government of Kenya, through our domestic resources, has committed to mobilizing 19% of this cost, and the remaining $45 billion is the reason we are all here in this room today. We present it to you as a direct, bankable, and transformative investment opportunity for the private sector leaders, the fund managers, and the financiers gathered here. The Kenyan government is building the regulatory and financial architecture to attract you and secure your investment. We have recently finalized our Climate Change Regulations 2025, that's carbon trading, creating a predictable, transparent, and world-class legal framework to unlock the immense potential of carbon markets. We are developing policies to incentivize green bonds, to promote innovative financing mechanisms, and to streamline public-private partnership in the climate space. Our message to the global investment community is clear and unwavering. Kenya is open for green business. We have policy certainty and regulatory stability. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I am well aware that it is the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the SMEs, many of whom will be pitching in the deal rooms of this summit, who build the vehicle that will drive climate investment. They are the engine of this transformation, translating ambition into action. One solar panel, one drought-resistant seed, and one recycled product at a time. The core purpose of this summit must therefore be to create a functional bridge between our continent's policy ambition with the innovators and the global capital that is ready to be deployed. Therefore, my call to action to you today is threefold. First, to the investors, look beyond the outdated headlines of risk. See Africa for what it is, the world's most promising emerging market for green investment. Partner with us and let us generate competitive returns while building a resilient world. Second, to our brilliant innovators, you are the heart of this summit. You are the proof that Africa's solutions are not only viable, but are globally competitive. Continue to challenge the status quo, to disrupt and to build. You are creating the high-value jobs of the 21st century, and you have our government's full support. And third, to our development partners, your role in de-risking investment, providing technical assistance, and building institutional capacity is more critical than ever. Let us collaborate to perfect the blended finance models and guarantee investment that will crowd in the trillions of dollars of private capital required to meet this moment. Finally, let this summit be the moment we begin to build the financial architecture for a new green Africa. Let it be defined not by speeches, but by deals sealed, not by pledges, but by projects funded. Let it be the moment we collectively start to close Africa's climate finance gap together. So it is now my distinct honor and profound pleasure to declare the African Climate Investment Summit 2025 officially open. Thank you very much.
Mr. Murabula, please join us for a quick photo here with the CS, and then we shall be good to go. CS, please, you just make your way to the center. Yeah. My camera crew, are we ready? Looks like we're home and dry. Thank you. Thank you very much, CS. Asante sana for gracing our official opening this morning into afternoon. Thank you very much. Let's appreciate the Cabinet Secretary one more time. And as the Cabinet Secretary did indicate, she is on a very tight schedule, and therefore, at this juncture, I would like to invite Mr. Mirabula to usher her into the exhibition section, where she will have an opportunity to interact with some of the material that is present there. And therefore, that exit will be done via this exit to my right on that side. So the Cabinet Secretary will be ushered into the exhibition section to get a look and feel of what it is that has been put together. For those who have been part of this conversation on television, thank you so much for joining us. The Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Climate Change has just officially opened the Africa Climate Investment Summit 2025, and that is Honorable Dr. Deborah Mlongo Barasa, who has been part of us this morning. We shall keep on with the conversation happening here. You can catch it on all online platforms of the Nation Media Group. Thank you if you were joining us via broadcast. For those of us who are physically present here, thank you so much for still staying with us. We had a QR code on screen. I hope a number of us or all of us managed to scan to be able to see the breakout sessions, because we shall have breakout 1 happening right here. That is on sustainable agriculture, bridging the finance gap, unlocking capital for Africa's agricultural transformation. Breakout 2 happens in ballroom 2 to my right, across here. So you just exit via that door, turn to your right, this room, and that will be on the circular economy, focusing on circularity as capital. Here, the climate scene setting will be done by Vincent Ogaya from KCIC. On the other room, we shall have Emily Aman, who is an expert on climate affairs, speaking about the circular economy opportunities. Emily, are you with us in the room? Or maybe she's already there. So please, those are the breakout sessions. If you wish to have the conversation on sustainable agriculture, please remain here. If you want to have a conversation on the circular economy, exit via that door, turn to your right, this room right here, that is where it happens. We are free to proceed to whichever section we want to be part of, and we shall be kicking off. And that will take us up till we do our lunch break, and therefore we have very limited time, about 45 minutes before we transition that way. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to go into your breakout sessions. Tech team, maybe some music as we do that transition.